Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm actually, you might notice I'm not in my normal studio. I'm in Lincoln with Matt Cossey here, and we're going to be talking about keyboards today. So Matt, let's start off with an introduction. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Yeah, well, my name's Matt. I'm originally from the East Coast, in Lowestoft. I call it the Far East, the most easterly point in the country, but I moved to Coventry 18 years ago to study at Nexus. It's now Nexus Institute of Creative Arts, and I'm the principal there.
Okay,
now.
cool.
Yeah,
Great. Why is it that we're talking keyboards with you?
Well, I mean, as well as my day job, working at Nexus, which I absolutely love training up next generation of worshippers and musicians. But I'm a really passionate keyboard player myself.
Yep.
And over the years, I've gotten to working quite closely with Nord, which has been a lot of fun. So I'm a beta tester and a demo musician for Nord, and I get to travel around and do like the NAMM show and stuff like that.
Wow.
Demoing for them, doing some of their press stuff. So that's been great. And actually, I just wrote an article for Spring Harvest about the Nord. We sort of jokingly called it "Praise the Nord." Yes, mildly heretical, but it's just a silly joke because it rhymes,
Yeah,
but talking about why are Nords seemingly everywhere. That's a bit about me, and that's why we're talking about keyboards.
Yeah, cool. So, perhaps very briefly then, why are Nords everywhere?
Yeah. Well, spoiler alerts, but I guess one thing I would say is that they've sort of come to be synonymous with a really high standard. So Nord as a company, they don't produce like sort of home entry level keyboards like a lot of companies do.
Yeah.
They're targeted at the pro end market, and they're made for gigging musicians, and so they're laid out in a way that makes sense. Like a lot of people find them really complicated, but I think once you sort of get under the ethos of them, they're actually really, really straightforward to use. I like it in like a worship context because I like to be able to sort of flow with what's going on, and part of that is adapting my sound on the fly. Even, you can see here on our little sort of prop keyboard, everything's in front of you.
Yeah.
So it's all really hands-on and really accessible. So when you want to change sounds and sort of morph things and modify in the moment, you don't have to dig through menu after menu. It's just all there. And they, of course, they sound great. They're known for just being associated with a great sound. And so, you see them everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Every latest Christian music video release, every festival and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, even if you can't see the actual brand, it's the colour, isn't it, that always gives it away. You see that from a mile off. You see those red keyboards and you know straight away it's some kind of a Nord. Yeah,
well, that's exactly the question I was sort of answering in this article, because people do ask a lot about that. They don't know they've seen a Nord necessarily, but they notice the red.
Yeah.
And so Nord, they call them now the original red keyboard because other companies have sort of followed suit and thought, it's a great idea, having a brightly coloured keyboard.
Cool, yeah. So what, just take us through sort of how you would go about starting to build your sound for a worship set. What does that look like for you? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, I tend to start with one bass patch that I kind of build and morph from. So I'll give myself a piano, but I'll have an EP or a Rhodes that I can flick to, because I find they're sort of two most commonly used things. I'll have an organ in there ready to go. So I have it saved into my patch, but I have it turned down generally. And I'll only have an organ for most sort of worship tracks in a lower split. So everything else is everywhere, but the organ's down here because it's pretty piercing in the top range. So when I'm doing twinkly piano bits, I don't want the organ blasting out. So I've got organ there, I've got pad there ready to go, and I can sort of ride the volumes of those, and that's like my simple starting point. And I find tweaking that and the balance and the type of piano sound you use covers most bases.
Yeah.
That's where I start.
So I'm a sound engineer. I've never touched a Nord keyboard before. So you're talking there about you have all those sounds kind of preloaded and you just bring those levels up. So I can see you've got a bunch of faders over there. Would they be like how you would fade up different sounds? Or you sort of almost set a different sound to each of those faders and then just bring them up as you need them?
Yeah. So your Nords have sort of different sections. So as well as your master volume, each section has its own volume.
Right.
So I can just sort of dial the organ in as much as I like, or the synth pad section as much as I like, or the piano. So it's really easy to go to a moment and just dial out the piano and then just have the pad as a bed. And then I can bring that piano back in whenever I like. I mean, you can do that with a wheel or a control pedal as well.
Okay, so it's all flexible, programmable.
You can assign it all so your hands free if you want to.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So yeah, I have all those things just ready to balance as I like.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Just maybe just as a quick note, just to make everybody aware, we are right next door to a room where they're sound checking a bunch of stuff. So if you can hear some things in the background, there's a band sound checking just next door, which Matt will be joining later on this evening. But just let you know that's what's going on in the background over there. Cool. Okay. So that's how you would start to build your sounds.
Yeah.
So one question that I get asked quite a lot is there'll be keyboard players who will build themselves a sound at home. They'll go into their home studio, get it sounding awesome, and then they bring it to church on a Sunday morning and it just doesn't sound the same. Is that something you find? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I find that a lot. I mean, it's unavoidable. And so I think it's good to be aware that it will happen. You know, you're at home in your room, generally listening on some kind of hi-fi, you know, high fidelity, and then you take that sound that sounds great and you put it through a PA. And I think what people forget is that every PA sounds different, and every monitor that you're listening to your sound through will emphasize different frequencies, or it won't be as clear, so it all sounds muddy or boxy. And then, so every PA sounds different. And then, of course, I mean, as you know, every room sounds different as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you've got the combination of those two things. So what I think piano players especially need to be aware of, whether it's piano or Rhodes, like an electric piano, piano is very MIDI. Like there's a lot of mids, and that's what makes it sound so lovely and rich. When you're at home on a hi-fi, you know, you want to hear all that. But when you're suddenly in a band context or a room where it's like all the frequencies are building up, you need to kind of help that out. So Nords have what's called a sweepable mid. And of course you know what that is.
That would be very standard for sound engineer, absolutely,
But a lot of piano players don't know what that is. And Nord put that on very deliberately because they know that this kind of situation exists.
Yeah, of course.
So you can very quickly isolate, find those frequencies. So I recommend a boost and sweep, quick boost and sweep. So what I do is I take the gain up on the mid-range, just turn it up, sweep through the frequencies until I hear the thing that sounds really nasty or is making the room resonate, you know, and then I just cut it. And so that's really, really useful. And that can help. So I would recommend trying to have a quick sound check almost in every new place you go. Because sadly, you'll never get it dead right at home in a way that you'll never have to touch it when you go into a different space. That's
Absolutely. That's really good advice. It's exactly how I would teach it from a sound engineering point of view as well. It's always easier to hear a boosted frequency than it is to hear a reduced one. So give that boost, sweep it, really helpful. That's great, really good.
You can, of course, I mean, a sound engineer might want to do that themselves. But I find, certainly in my context, when I want to control how it sounds, the fact that it's there right in front of you, you can do it so quickly and sort of get the source sounding as good as you can to the desk. And then, of course, engineer can just tweak it rather than having to scoop loads out at the desk.
And is that the kind of thing that you would set, like, kind of pre-service and then not adjust during the service?
I do adjust it. And I have it saved at different settings. So it's probably worth saying for a keyboard player, be aware that an electric piano sound is way boomier. So on like a Rhodes piano, the low mids and the lows are like gargantuan compared to a piano. through a PA system, and I know a lot of people find that. So they get their piano sounding nice, and they turn to their Rhodes, and suddenly it's like.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So I use the EQ differently and save it differently on a Rhodes.
Great.
So I'm generally scooping out sort of mids, some high mids on a piano.
Yeah.
But on the Rhodes, it's the lower mids that I'm scooping out quite a lot.
So you're essentially trying to send something to the sound engineer that's relatively flat from one sound to another.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super helpful. That's great. Well, that's exactly what we need as a sound engineer. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Great. So on that note, then, have you got any advice for keyboard players working with sound engineers? We've probably got a bit of a mixture of both of those two groups of people on this channel. So how do you find that relationship, and have you got any advice on that?
Yeah. Well, I guess understanding what a sound engineer is having to deal with is really helpful. And if you don't understand and there's not communication, you can easily get frustration, can't you? It's that classic thing where musicians and engineers sort of war against each other a bit. So I think as a piano player, it's really helpful to be aware that our instrument is a bit of a nightmare, actually, because it covers so many frequencies and it can like obliterate what's going on, and it fights with guitar and it fights with the voice at points. And so if you're aware of that, that can be useful. So even though I said the ideal would be that I would get a sound check in every venue, that's obviously not always possible. But I do know just visually what to dial in on my EQ to help in a live environment. And so I will generally always do that. And I'm just sort of trying to help it out. I will often speak to a sound engineer as well. And if they comment on it, I'll ask them, do you want to sort it out at the desk, or do you want me to do it here? So I'll ask and just make sure that there's communication. That's probably my advice. But as I said earlier, the more that you can have your source levels, not just volume, but also equalization, flat, the better.
Absolutely.
It'll be so much easier for the engineer.
Yeah, definitely. That's it's really good advice. And I guess, like you say, communication is really key. So I don't know how many Nord players I've mixed in the years, but I didn't realise that this setting existed on a Nord. So it's really handy to know that and to be able to have that conversation with a keyboard player if they're in that position. Just talk to them about how they're using their EQ and what they've got set. Really good.
I think lastly as well, compression can be really helpful in a live environment. And again, a Nord has a master compressor. Certainly the stage models I use, if I'm in a band context, I'll generally always put it in because the dynamic range of a keyboard is so vast. And that can really help as well, to slot something into a mix.
Absolutely, I mean, I would always compress a keyboard at the mix at the desk end anyway. So again, I guess that's a conversation that you can have is how much compression are you applying at the keyboard and how much do we need to apply on the desk, and make sure those two things are not kind of fighting against each other as well to a certain extent.
Definitely.
Cool, great. So if anybody's got any further questions or wants to know more about any of this stuff, is there any way that they can come and find you? Have you got anywhere online that they can come and find you?
I mean, I've got a website, so mattcossey.co.uk.
Great.
Go on there. You can get in touch there. I'd also encourage people to check out Nexus. Go on the Nexus website, nexus-ica.co.uk. You'll be able to find me on the faculty page there. And but I mean, Nexus is a great place, you know, if you're a Christian musician or an engineer. It's a great place to study and get a degree. But study in a professional, context where you'll really be pushed in your craft and strive for excellence.
Amazing. I think we'll definitely throw some links down below so you can go and check all that out and see more of any of that as well. That'd be really good. And we'll also make sure we put links to all the channels as well at the end. So hang around at the end to find all those links so you can follow any of that. Matt, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
And happy playing your Nord.
Thank you.
broken step. I can't see the summit yet. This mountain seems too high to climb. I've already faced my mountain. I've come down the other side. Lord, this one surely can be mine. Hear me, Lord, take this cup from my lips, but only if it's your will, not mine. Faithful in every season, I will hold on in every storm, every promise that I believe in, it will uphold me whatever comes. 'Cause the truth is, God's got this.